Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive.
Okay.
This time, we're going to be looking at counseling skills and pitfalls.
Right.
And we're going to be focusing in on Chapter 3 from the textbook, Choices, Interviewing and Counseling Skills for Canadians.
Okay. Sounds good.
8th edition.
All right.
So, have you ever wondered what makes a counselor really effective? What are the things that make them good at their jobs?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, and it's more complex than most people think.
Right. So let's just start with the basics.
Sure.
What is counseling?
Ah.
How would you explain that to somebody who's never encountered it before?
Well, counseling is a relationship.
Okay.
It's a relationship that's designed to be helpful and focused.
Okay.
And it's a time-limited relationship to help clients deal with the demands of life.
Okay.
It focuses on making unmanageable feelings and problems more manageable.
Okay, so you're not necessarily fixing things for them.
No.
You're helping them manage.
Manage, exactly. Yeah. So, if you think about an analogy.
Yeah, give us an analogy.
It's like a guided journey.
Okay.
Where the counselor is like a guide.
Okay.
Helping the client navigate a challenging terrain.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're giving them the answers.
Right.
You're helping them find their own way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finding their own way through the challenges.
Now, our textbook also says that counseling is defined and limited by 3 things.
Okay.
The needs and wants of the client.
Yes.
The competence of the counselor.
Yes.
And the mandate of the agency.
Of course.
So how do those things work together?
Well, it's like building a house.
Okay.
The client's needs and wants are the blueprint.
Okay.
They determine the overall design and purpose.
Okay.
The counsel's skills are like the tools and expertise.
Okay.
And then the agency's mandate is like the building code.
Okay.
So it sets those boundaries and regulation, for how that house can be built.
So you're saying that each counseling experience is unique and has its own little blueprint.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
It is, yeah.
So now let's talk about an approach that comes up in our textbook quite a bit, and that is the trauma-informed approach.
Mm-hmm.
What does that even mean?
Well, trauma-informed approach in counseling.
Yeah.
It recognizes that many people, come to counseling with a history of trauma.
Okay.
And we know that trauma can have a really significant impact on people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Okay.
So it's about acknowledging that and then creating a safe and empowering environment where those clients feel heard and respected.
Okay, so you're saying that it's not just about addressing immediate issue.
No.
It's about looking at the whole person.
The whole person, exactly.
And their history.
Yeah, it's like if you imagine a house with some cracks in the foundation.
Okay.
You can't just ignore those cracks and build on top of them.
Right.
You have to address the underlying issues.
Yeah, to make it strong.
Yeah, okay. That's a really cool way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I think it helps to visualize it that way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, our textbook talks about the strengths focus approach quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, and how does it apply to counseling?
Well, the strengths focus approach is really about shifting the focus from problems to possibilities.
Okay.
It's about recognizing and amplifying the client's own strengths, resources, and resilience.
Okay, so instead of focusing on everything that's wrong,
Yeah.
you're focusing on what's right.
Exactly.
Cool.
Imagine a garden with both flowers and weeds.
Oh.
Instead of fixating on those weeds, the strengths focus approach would be like nurturing the flowers.
I like that analogy. Okay, so how do you as a counselor actually do that?
Well, the first step is believing in the client's capacity for growth and change. It's about seeing their potential, even when they might not see it themselves.
It's like, a coach who believes in their athlete's ability to win.
Right.
Even when they're facing a tough opponent.
Even when they're down by a lot.
Exactly.
Okay, what else?
Then you have to look for and acknowledge their strengths.
Okay.
This could involve asking them about their accomplishments or talents, or even times when they overcame challenges.
Okay.
It's like shining a spotlight on their successes, reminding them of their own resilience.
I can see how that would be very empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, so what else are we doing?
Well, you want to identify their prior successes.
Okay.
You might ask questions like, tell me about a time when you achieved a goal that you set for yourself.
Okay.
Or what are you most proud of accomplishing in your life?
Okay.
These stories of past successes can be powerful reminders of their own ability to create positive change.
Right, because then it's like they have evidence
They do.
that they can do it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like building a portfolio of their own capabilities.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about when somebody has experienced a lot of adversity?
Right.
How does that factor into the strength focus approach?
Well, then it's about acknowledging the strength that they've gained from adversity.
Okay.
It's about reframing those challenges as opportunities for growth and resilience.
Okay.
It's like a tree that's weathered a storm.
Okay.
Its roots grow deeper and stronger as a result.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So you're kind of helping them see the good
Exactly.
that came out of the bad.
Yeah, finding the silver lining in those difficult experiences.
Okay, cool. Now, we're human, and sometimes we put ourselves down.
Absolutely.
So as a counselor, how do you deal with that?
Well, in those situations, you want to ignore or question those self-deprecating comments.
Okay.
It's not about denying the client's feelings,
right,
but gently challenging those negative self-perceptions and redirecting the focus back to their strengths. It's like weeding a garden. You remove the weeds to allow the flowers to flourish.
So you're supporting the good, getting rid of the bad.
Yeah, nurturing those positive aspects.
Okay, what else? What's the last one?
And finally, utilizing community and family resources.
Okay.
That could involve connecting clients with support groups or community organizations or even family members who can provide encouragement and assistance.
Okay, so you're not just working one-on-one with this person. You're trying to
build
a whole team.
A support network, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. It's like building a network of support around the client.
Okay.
Providing them with a strong foundation to build upon.
Okay, so to summarize, the strength focus approach is really about looking at what this person can do.
Absolutely.
And how we can amplify that and help them grow.
Yeah, it's about empowering them to utilize their strengths.
And overcome the challenges that they're facing.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about some of the things that can go wrong in counseling.
Yeah, counseling isn't always smooth sailing.
Right.
Even with the best intentions.
So what are some of the things that we need to watch out for?
Well, our textbook talks about pitfalls that can come from 4 different sources.
Okay.
The client, the counselor,
okay,
the process itself.
Okay.
Or even unexpected events.
Okay.
So, let's start with the client variables.
Okay, let's do.
These are things related to the client that can impact the effectiveness of the counseling.
Okay.
For example, the client's motivation to engage in the process can really influence the outcome. If you imagine trying to push a car uphill, if the car's in neutral, it's going to be much harder to move it forward.
Yeah.
But if the car is in drive, it will have its own momentum, making the climb easier.
So you're saying the client has to be motivated to change.
Exactly. That motivation is key.
Okay, what else?
Then there's capacity.
Okay.
This refers to the client's ability to participate fully in the counseling process. It's like trying to fill a cup that's already overflowing. If the client is dealing with, significant mental health challenges, overwhelming stress, or just a lack of resources, they might not have the capacity to engage effectively in the therapy.
So they have to have the mental and emotional space to be able to participate.
Yes. Those inner resources are important.
What's the last one?
And then there's opportunity.
Okay.
This refers to external factors that can impact a client's access to and engagement in the counseling.
Okay.
So things like financial constraints, lack of transportation, or even stigma surrounding mental health. Those can all create barriers to seeking support.
So even if they're motivated and they have the capacity, they still might not have the opportunity.
Exactly.
Wow. That's really sad.
It is, yeah. It highlights the systemic barriers that can exist.
Okay, so we've talked about client variables. Now, what about counselor variables?
Okay, well, counselors are human too.
Right.
We bring our own experiences and limitations to the table.
Okay.
And one of the biggest challenges we face is burnout. It's like a candle that's been burning brightly for a long time.
Okay.
Eventually, it starts to flicker and dim. Similarly, counselors who are constantly exposed to their clients' pain and trauma, they can experience emotional exhaustion, compassion fatigue, and just a diminished capacity to help.
So you're saying it's a very demanding job.
It can be.
Emotionally
draining,
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
What are some other challenges that counselors face?
Well, there's also vicarious trauma,
Okay.
which occurs when counselors essentially absorb the trauma of their clients.
Okay.
It's like a sponge soaking up water.
Whoa.
Over time, the counselor can become saturated with that pain and suffering.
That's heavy.
It is, yeah. It can lead to emotional distress, nightmares.
Wow.
Even changes in their worldview.
It sounds like you need a lot of self-care.
You do, yeah.
To do that job well.
Self-care and professional support are essential.
Okay. What else?
Well, personal problems can also spill over into the counseling relationship. Things like relationship issues or financial stress or health concerns. Imagine trying to drive a car with a flat tire. Okay. It's going to be bumpy and unstable.
Yeah.
Similarly, if a counselor is struggling with their own personal challenges, it can be difficult to provide that clear and consistent support.
Yeah. So you're saying that the counselor really needs to have her own stuff together.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is key.
Yeah. Okay.
And seeking support when needed. Those are essential practices.
Okay. What's the last one?
And then loss of objectivity.
Okay.
This occurs when a counselor becomes overly invested in the client's situation or allows their personal opinions and biases to cloud their judgment. Okay. It's like a judge who's personally connected to one of the parties in the case. Right. It would be impossible for them to remain impartial. Okay. Similarly, counselors need to maintain that professional distance and avoid letting their own feelings and beliefs interfere with their ability to be objective.
Okay, so there's this delicate balance.
There is.
Between empathy and detachment.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, cool. Now we've talked about client variables, counselor variables.
Right.
Now let's talk about process variables.
Okay.
What are some of the things that can go wrong with the process itself?
Well, one common one is something called pseudo-counseling.
Okay, pseudo-counseling.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
It occurs when the focus is on superficial solutions rather than addressing the underlying issues.
So you're saying it's not just about giving advice.
No.
It's about getting to the root.
To the root of the problem, yeah.
That's a problem.
Like putting a Band-Aid on a deep wound without actually cleaning or stitching it. It might cover the wound temporarily.
Yeah.
But it doesn't address the underlying problem.
Yeah, you're not fixing anything.
Exactly.
Okay. What else?
Well, advice giving itself can be a pitfall.
Okay. So even though it might seem helpful to give advice.
Yeah, it's tempting.
Yeah.
It can actually undermine the client's autonomy.
Okay.
It's like giving someone crutches when they need to learn to walk on their own.
Right.
It might provide that temporary support, but it doesn't help them develop the strength and balance they need.
So they become dependent on the crutches?
Exactly, yeah.
And then they can never walk on their own.
It can create that dependency. Yeah. It's about fostering their independence.
What's the next one?
Another challenge is rescuing.
Rescuing. Okay.
Yeah, rescuing happens when a counselor feels compelled to fix the client's problems or protect them from experiencing discomfort.
Oh.
It's like a parent who's constantly hovering over their child, preventing them from falling or getting hurt.
Yeah.
The child might never learn to walk or develop resilience.
So we have to let them make mistakes.
We do. It's about allowing them to struggle and learn from those experiences, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's hard as a counselor.
It can be, yeah.
To watch somebody struggle.
Yeah, we have to trust in their ability to navigate those challenges.
All right. What else?
Well, then there's faulty technique.
Faulty technique?
Yeah, this occurs when a counselor uses techniques that are inappropriate, ineffective, or even harmful.
Okay.
Counseling is a complex profession. Yeah. It requires training and skill.
So it's like a surgeon using the wrong tool.
Exactly. Yeah. The wrong tools or procedures can lead to complications and setbacks.
So it's really important.
It is.
For the counselor to be well-trained and know what they're doing.
Continuing education is crucial.
Okay, what's the last one?
And then lack of resources.
Lack of resources, okay.
This can significantly impact the effectiveness of counseling. It's like trying to build a house without enough materials. Okay. The construction's going to be delayed, incomplete, or structurally unsound. Okay. So if a counselor doesn't have access to adequate resources.
Like what kind of resources?
Well, things like appropriate referral options, community support services, or even enough time and space for sessions, it can limit their ability to help.
Okay, so it's not just about the counselor themselves.
Right.
It's about the whole system.
The whole system, yeah.
That's surrounding them.
It takes a village.
It does.
To support both the client and the counselor.
Now, in addition to those 4 categories of pitfalls, our textbook also lists 10 common counseling errors.
Okay.
So let's run through those quickly.
Sure.
What's the first one?
Well, rigidity.
Rigidity, okay.
This refers to a counselor's inflexibility in their approach.
Okay.
Imagine a chef who only knows how to cook one dish.
Oh.
They might struggle to cater to different tastes and preferences.
Right.
So counselors need to be adaptable.
Okay.
And able to tailor their approach to each client.
Okay, so you got to have a variety of tools in your toolbox.
You do, yeah.
Okay.
A diverse skill set is crucial.
That's the next one.
Then there's unresolved relationship issues.
Okay.
This can refer to the counselor's own personal relationships.
Okay.
Or unresolved dynamics within the therapeutic relationship.
Okay.
It's like trying to navigate a ship through rough waters with a broken compass.
Oh.
It's going to be difficult to stay on course.
Yeah.
So those unresolved issues can hinder the effectiveness of the therapy.
So you got to be self-aware.
You do, yeah.
And make sure that your own baggage isn't spilling over.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, what's the next one?
The next one is advice giving.
Advice giving. Okay.
Which we've touched on already.
Yeah, but it's so tempting.
It is. It's a common trap.
To give advice.
Yeah, that well-intentioned helpers often fall into.
Right.
But it can undermine the client's autonomy.
Right.
It's like giving someone a detailed map to their destination.
Okay.
But not allowing them to choose their own route.
Okay.
They might get there eventually.
Yeah.
But they won't have learned the way or developed their own navigation skills.
This is really about empowerment.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Empowering them to find their own solutions.
What's the next one?
Then there's absence of core condition.
Absence of core conditions.
These are essential ingredients for effective therapy.
Okay.
Things like empathy.
Okay.
Genuineness.
Okay.
And unconditional positive regard.
Okay.
It's like trying to grow a plant without sunlight, water, or nutrients.
Yeah, it's not going to grow very well.
It's not going to thrive.
Yeah.
So if the therapy lacks these core conditions, it's unlikely to be helpful.
So the relationship itself is really important.
Absolutely.
Okay, what's the next one?
The next one is rescuing.
Rescuing, okay.
Which we've also discussed.
Yeah.
It's at that natural human instinct to want to help others in pain.
Right.
But sometimes the most helpful thing we can do is actually step back. And allow them to face those challenges and develop their own coping mechanisms.
Okay.
There's that saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day.
Right.
Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Yeah. It's the same principle here.
Okay.
It's about teaching them those life skills.
Right.
Rather than providing a quick fix.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, next we have loss of objectivity.
Loss of objectivity, okay.
Again, something we talked about.
Yeah.
But it's so important for counselors to maintain that professional distance and avoid letting their own personal opinions and biases interfere.
Yeah, so it's not about you.
No.
It's about the client.
It's about the client, yeah.
Okay, what's the next one?
Then there are pacing problems.
Pacing problems, okay.
This can refer to either moving too quickly or too slowly through the counseling process.
Oh, so you have to kind of find that sweet spot.
You do, yeah. It's like trying to force a flower to bloom before it's ready.
Right.
It's likely to wilt and die. Yeah. If a counselor pushes a client too hard before they're ready, it can backfire.
Okay, so you got to be patient.
You do, yeah.
Okay, what else?
Then there's too much or too little self-disclosure.
Okay, self-disclosure, that's always a tricky one.
It is, yeah.
So how much is too much?
Well, it's a matter of judgment.
Okay.
Self-disclosure can be a powerful tool when used judiciously, but the focus should always be on the client.
Right.
Imagine a stage where the spotlight's constantly shifting between the actor and the audience.
Okay.
It can be distracting and disorienting.
Yeah.
So excessive self-disclosure can shift the focus away from the client and onto the counselor.
Okay.
Which is helpful.
So it's okay to share a little bit.
Yes.
But don't make it about you.
Exactly, yes. Okay, what else?
Then there's failure to engage with nonverbal messages.
Okay, nonverbal messages.
This means overlooking the client's body language, tone of voice.
And other cues.
Okay.
Imagine trying to understand a foreign language by only listening to the words and ignoring the speaker's facial expressions.
Yeah, you're going to miss a lot of the meaning.
You'll misinterpret things.
Yeah.
So Counselors need to pay attention to both the verbal and nonverbal communication.
Okay, so you have to be very observant.
Absolutely. Keen observation is key.
All right, that's the last one.
And finally, cultural invandor, gender insensitivity.
Oh, yeah.
This occurs when a counselor fails to acknowledge and respect the client's cultural background, gender identity, or other aspects of their identity.
Right.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Right, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. Yeah. Counselors need to be culturally competent and sensitive to their clients' unique experiences.
Okay, so essentially what you're saying is that we have to be aware of our own biases.
Absolutely, our own assumptions, and be willing to learn and unlearn and adapt our approach to be more inclusive.
That's a lot to think about.
It is.
And I imagine you probably get better at that.
You do.
With experience.
Yeah, it's a process of ongoing learning and growth.
Cool. All right, so we've talked about client variables, counselor variables, process variables, and these 10 common counseling errors. I feel like that was a lot.
It was, yeah.
To digest.
A lot to consider.
Yeah. But it's really important stuff.
It is.
I think for people to know.
Yeah, it helps us understand the complexities of counseling.
Now let's talk about the actual structure of a counseling session.
All right.
Can you walk us through the different phases of the process?
Yeah, generally counseling progresses through 4 distinct phases, each with its own purpose and focus.
Right.
Imagine a journey with different stages.
All right. I like where this is going.
Yeah, you need to pack the right supplies, choose the best route, navigate obstacles, and eventually reach your destination.
Okay, so counseling's a journey.
It is. It's a process of growth and change.
So what's that first phase look like?
Well, the first phase is called the preliminary phase.
Preliminary phase.
Yeah, and it's really about preparation. Yeah, and it's really about preparation. Yeah. It's like packing your bags, checking the weather, making sure your car is in good working order before setting out on a road trip.
So you're getting everything ready.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to schedule the initial appointment, gather information about the client, and make sure that physical space is prepared.
Okay, so you're setting the stage.
Setting the stage, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so what's the next stage in this journey?
Well, the next phase is the beginning phase.
The beginning phase. Okay.
And this is like the start of the actual journey.
Right.
This is where the client and the counselor meet for the first time, establish that rapport, and start to explore the concerns.
Okay, so you're getting to know each other.
Exactly.
And building that relationship.
Building that therapeutic relationship.
Okay.
And, that's essential for trust and open communication.
So this stage is all about connection.
Connection, yeah.
Okay, what comes after the beginning?
Well, then we move into the action phase.
The action phase.
And this is where the real work of therapy takes place.
Okay.
The counselor and client collaborate to develop goals, implement strategies, and really work towards positive change.
So this is where things actually start to happen.
They do, yeah. It's like hitting the open road, encountering unexpected detours, adjusting your route as needed, but making progress towards the destination.
Okay, so there might be some bumps in the road.
There might be.
But you're still moving forward.
Still moving forward, yes.
Okay, so what's the last phase?
Well, the final phase is the ending phase.
The ending phase, okay.
And this is like reaching your destination and reflecting on the journey. This is where the counselor and client review their progress, celebrate accomplishments, and prepare for that transition out of therapy.
So you're wrapping things up.
Wrapping things up, yeah. It's like arriving at your destination, unpacking your bags, sharing stories of your adventures, and saying goodbye to your travel companions.
That's a really nice way of thinking about it.
It's a time of closure.
Yeah.
And integration.
Okay, cool. Now let's talk about a concept that comes up a lot in psychology and in counseling specifically, and that is defense mechanisms.
Right.
What are they and how do they work?
Well, defense mechanisms are essentially psychological shields that we use to protect ourselves from emotional pain, anxiety, or just uncomfortable thoughts and feelings.
So it's like we're trying to avoid those negative emotions.
Yeah, we're trying to protect ourselves.
Okay.
Imagine a castle with thick walls and a moat to protect it from invaders.
Oh, so it's like we're building up these defenses.
Exactly. Yeah. And just like those tassel defenses can be helpful, defense mechanisms can also be adaptive. They can help us manage stress, regulate emotions, and maintain a sense of stability when things are tough.
So they serve a purpose.
They do, yeah.
Okay. But our textbook also gives some examples of defense mechanisms
Right.
that sound kind of unhealthy.
Yeah.
So how can something that's supposed to be protective actually be harmful?
Well, they can become problematic
Yep.
if they're overused,
Okay.
inflexible, or they prevent us from facing and addressing the underlying issues.
So we're kind of avoiding the problem
We are, yeah.
instead of actually dealing with it.
Exactly. We're sweeping it under the rug.
So it's like that castle
Right.
that's so fortified
Yeah.
that nobody can ever go in or out.
And nobody goes in or out. They're
Yeah.
safe inside,
Yeah.
but they're also missing out on life.
Yeah, they can't experience anything.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some of these unhealthy defense mechanisms?
Well, one common one is acting out.
Acting out. Okay.
Yeah, this is where you express difficult emotions
Okay.
through actions rather than words.
Okay.
Imagine a child who throws a tantrum when they're feeling frustrated or angry.
Yeah.
They don't have the words to express their feeling.
Right. Gotta know how.
So they act out instead.
Okay.
Similarly, adults might engage in impulsive behaviors
Okay.
like substance abuse
Okay.
or risky sexual activity
Okay.
as a way of coping.
Wow. So they're trying to escape,
They are, yeah.
trying to numb out
Yeah.
or distract themselves.
Okay, what else?
Well, another common one is denial.
Denial.
Yeah. All heard of that one.
We have, yeah.
So what's that all about?
Well, this is where you refuse to acknowledge or accept a painful reality.
So you're just pretending it's not happening.
Exactly. It's like sticking your head in the sand.
Okay.
Like someone who continues to smoke cigarettes despite knowing the health risks.
Right.
They're in denial about
Yeah.
the potential consequences.
So were you ever allowed to use denial?
I mean, denial can be a temporary coping mechanism,
Okay.
but it's not a long-term solution.
Okay.
Eventually you have to face reality
Right.
to make positive changes.
Okay, what's the next one?
Well, another one is displacement.
Displacement. Okay.
This is where you redirect emotions
Okay.
from a threatening target to a safer one.
So you're kind of shifting
Yeah.
the
The
blame
temper or the anger.
or the anger.
Yeah, like someone who gets yelled at by their boss
Okay.
and then comes home and yells at their spouse.
Oh,
They're displacing that anger.
wow. So they're taking it out
They are, yeah.
on somebody else.
On someone who's less threatening.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, then there's dissociation.
Dissociation. Okay.
This is where you detach from reality or from your own thoughts, feelings, or experiences.
Okay.
It's like daydreaming
Okay.
or spacing out
Okay.
during a boring meeting.
Yeah, I've done that.
We all have, yeah.
Okay. So you're just kind of checking out
Checking out, yeah.
mentally.
To avoid feeling bored or uncomfortable.
Okay. And that could be unhealthy.
Well, it can be
Yeah.
if it becomes a habitual way of coping,
Okay.
especially if it's interfering
Yeah.
with your ability to function.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, another one is humor.
Humor. Okay.
Now, humor can be a healthy coping mechanism, but it can also be used defensively
Okay.
to avoid facing those emotions. Like
Right.
someone who makes jokes about their problems or uses sarcasm to deflect,
Right.
they might be using humor as a shield to protect themselves from that vulnerability.
So they're not really dealing with the problem.
They're not, no.
They're just kind of laughing it off.
Laughing it off, yeah.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, then there's intellectualization.
Intellectualization.
Yeah, big word,
Yeah.
but it basically means using logic and reason to
Okay.
avoid experiencing emotions.
So you're overthinking it
Overthinking it, yeah.
instead of feeling it.
Exactly. It's like someone who gets bad news
Right.
and immediately starts researching statistics
Right.
and facts about the situation.
Yeah.
They're intellectualizing as a way to avoid
Right.
the emotional impact.
Okay, so we're not allowing ourselves to feel.
Exactly. We're keeping it in our heads
Yeah.
rather than in our hearts.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm.
What's the next one?
All right, the next one is passive aggression.
Passive aggression.
Yeah, we all know those passive aggressive people.
Yeah.
So what's that all about?
So how does that work as a defense mechanism?
Well, it's expressing anger or resentment indirectly
Okay.
rather than directly.
Okay, so you're not being upfront
You're not, no.
about how you're feeling.
Yeah, imagine someone who agrees to do a favor
Okay.
for a friend, but then intentionally does a poor job or procrastinates.
Yeah.
They're expressing their resentment passively.
Wow. So they're getting back at them
They are, yeah,
in a roundabout way?
without actually confronting them.
Wow. Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, next we have projection.
Projection.
Yeah,
That's a big one.
it is, yeah.
So what's that all about?
Well, projection is where you attribute your own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or impulses to others.
Okay.
It's like someone who's feeling insecure about their own intelligence, accusing others of being stupid.
Oh.
They're projecting their own insecurities.
So you can't see your own flaws?
You can't, no.
So you put them on other people?
We're blind to our own shortcomings.
Okay, what else? What's the next one?
Okay, then there's rationalization.
Rationalization.
Yeah.
We're good at that.
We are. Humans are masters of rationalization.
So what is rationalization?
It's basically creating logical explanations for our behavior.
Okay.
To avoid confronting uncomfortable truths.
So we're making excuses.
Making excuses, yeah.
For our bad behavior.
Exactly. It's like someone who cheats on their partner and then rationalizes it by saying, everyone does it, or my partner wasn't giving me enough attention.
Okay.
They're rationalizing to avoid that guilt.
Right. So you don't have to take responsibility.
Exactly. It's a way of avoiding responsibility.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, the next one is reaction formation.
Reaction formation. Okay.
Now, this one's a little bit tricky.
Okay.
It involves transforming an unacceptable impulse into its opposite.
Okay.
Imagine someone who's secretly attracted to a coworker, but then treats them rudely and dismissively.
So they're doing the opposite.
They are.
Of how they actually feel.
They're transforming that attraction into its opposite.
Wow, so they're masking their true feelings.
They are, yes.
Okay, what's the next one?
Right, next we have regression.
Regression.
Yeah, this involves reverting
Okay.
to childlike behaviors or coping mechanisms when we're faced with stress or anxiety. Imagine an adult who throws a tantrum when they don't get their way.
Yeah.
They're regressing to a childlike state.
To a time when things were simpler.
Exactly, to a time when things felt safer and more manageable.
Reals.
Then there's repression.
Repression, okay.
Yeah.
We've all repressed some memories.
I think we all have, yeah.
So how does that work?
Well, repression is pushing unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or memories out of conscious awareness.
So you're just blocking it out.
Blocking it out, yeah. It's like someone who's experienced a traumatic event and they block out the memory of that event. Right. They're repressing that painful memory.
So it's like a protective mechanism.
It is. It's the mind's way of protecting itself.
From those overwhelming emotions.
Exactly, from being overwhelmed by those painful experiences.
Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, next we have splitting.
Splitting, okay.
This involves viewing people and situations as either all good or all bad.
So it's like black and white thinking.
Black and white thinking, yeah.
Okay.
Like someone who idealizes their partner at the beginning of a relationship, but then demonizes them after a minor disagreement.
So it's like they can't see the nuances.
They can't, no. They're splitting their perception into extremes.
What else?
Right, then there's sublimation.
Sublimation, okay.
This involves channeling unacceptable impulses into socially acceptable activities.
So you're taking something negative and turning it into something positive.
Exactly. Like someone who's aggressive and competitive, they might channel that energy into playing sports or pursuing a challenging career.
So they're finding a healthy outlet.
Exactly, a healthy and productive outlet.
Okay, what's the last one?
And finally, suppression.
Suppression, okay.
Yeah, this is where you consciously choose to avoid thinking about or dealing with uncomfortable thoughts or feelings.
So you're just not dealing with it?
You're not, no.
You're pushing it away.
Pushing it down, yeah.
Hoping it'll go away.
Hoping it'll magically disappear.
Right. But we know that doesn't really work.
It doesn't, no.
Okay.
Suppression can be a temporary coping mechanism.
Okay.
But eventually you have to face those issues.
Yeah, you got to deal with it.
I do.
Okay, so we've talked about all these defense mechanisms.
I have, yeah.
It seems like they're all about avoiding uncomfortable emotions.
They are. That's the common thread.
Okay, so what's the alternative?
Well, the alternative is to develop healthier coping strategies. Strategies that allow us to process and manage those emotions in a more adaptive way.
So how do we do that?
Well, that's where therapy can be really helpful.
Okay.
A skilled counselor can help clients identify their defense mechanisms, understand how they're impacting their lives, and develop those healthier coping skills.
So it's about becoming more self-aware.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is key.
Yeah.
Once you're aware of your patterns, you can start to change them.
Okay, cool. Now, let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
And talk about something that our textbook calls dependent relationships. Can you explain what that means?
Well, dependent relationships refer to unhealthy dynamics where people get stuck.
Okay.
often without realizing it.
So they're kind of trapped
Gotcha.
in these unhealthy patterns.
In these patterns, yeah. And the textbook talks about 3 roles that people often play in these relationships.
Okay, what are those roles?
Well, you have the victim.
Okay, the victim.
The rescuer.
Okay, the rescuer.
And the perpetrator.
Yeah, those are the 3 roles.
So let's start with the victim.
Okay.
What does that look like?
Well, the victim
Yeah.
in a dependent relationship
Yeah.
often feels helpless,
Okay.
powerless,
Okay.
and relies on others to solve their problems.
Okay, so they're not taking responsibility.
They're not, no.
For their own lives.
You know, imagine a plant that's constantly being overwatered
Okay.
and never allowed to dry out.
Yeah.
It becomes weak,
Okay.
dependent,
Okay.
and unable to thrive on its own.
So the victim's kind of like that plant.
Yeah, they're not developing the
Okay.
strength and
Yeah.
resilience.
Yeah, they need to survive.
Exactly.
In-
Okay, what about the rescuer?
Well, the rescuer
Yeah.
often feels compelled to fix other people's problems, even at the expense of their own well-being.
Okay, so they're always trying to help,
They are, yeah.
but it's not actually helping.
It's not. No.
Yeah.
You know, think of a firefighter
Okay.
who rushes into burning buildings
Okay.
to save people.
Right?
They're brave and compassionate,
Okay.
but they might also be drawn to situations where they can feel needed
Right.
and important.
So they need to feel like they're the hero.
They do, yeah. And so
Okay.
in a dependent relationship, the rescuer might be enabling the victim's helplessness.
Okay, so they're not actually helping them.
They're not.
Well,
No,
no.
they might feel good about helping,
Yeah.
but they're not addressing
Yeah.
the underlying issue.
Okay, and then the last one is the perpetrator.
Right, the perpetrator.
That one sounds a little scary.
It can be, yeah.
So what does that role look like?
Well, the perpetrator in a dependent relationship
Mhm.
might be controlling,
Okay.
manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, think of a strict parent
Okay.
who sets rigid rules
Okay.
and controls their child's every move.
Right.
They might believe they're doing what's best,
Okay.
but they're actually stifling
Right.
the child's independence.
So they're doing more harm than good.
They are, yeah.
Okay, so how do these roles play out in counseling?
Well, it's a helpful lens for understanding the dynamics
Okay.
that can emerge in therapy,
Okay.
you know, often unconsciously.
So give me an example.
Well, a client might come in presenting as a victim,
Okay.
you know, seeking help and guidance from the counselor.
Right, and then the counselor might fall into that rescuer role,
Exactly.
trying to fix all their problems.
Yeah, wanting to provide all the answers.
Yeah.
And that can create a dynamic
Yeah.
where the client remains dependent on the counselor
Okay.
and doesn't develop those skills and that confidence to
Right.
manage their own challenges.
So how can we avoid those unhealthy dynamics?
Well, self-awareness is key,
Okay.
both for the client and the counselor. You know, the counselor needs to be mindful of
Yeah.
their own motivations and tendencies,
Okay.
recognizing when they might be slipping
Okay.
into that rescuer role.
Okay. And what about the client? What can they do?
Well, the client needs to take ownership
Yeah.
of their own healing and growth.
Okay.
You know, therapy is a collaborative process,
Right.
but ultimately the client is the one who needs to do the work.
So it's a partnership.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. Both parties need to be active
Right.
and engaged.
Okay. Now let's talk about 2 more concepts
Okay.
that come up a lot in counseling,
Mm-hmm.
and that is transference
Right.
and countertransference.
Yes, those are big ones.
Yeah. Can you remind me
Sure.
what those are all about?
Well, let's start with transference.
Okay.
You know, imagine you meet someone new
Okay.
who reminds you of a childhood friend.
Okay.
You might unconsciously start treating them as if they are that friend.
Okay.
You know, projecting your feelings and expectations onto them.
Okay. So how does that play out in therapy?
Well, it happens when a client unconsciously transfers
Okay.
feelings,
Mhm.
thoughts, or behaviors
Okay.
from past relationships
Okay.
onto the counselor.
So it's like they're seeing the counselor
Yeah.
through the lens
Through the lens, exactly.
of their past relationships.
Yeah, it's like they're wearing those old glasses
Well,
and they can't see the counselor clearly.
Wow. So how do counselors deal with that?
Well, it's about recognizing it,
Okay.
understanding its origins,
Hmm.
and using it as a tool for insight
Okay.
and growth.
So instead of getting upset,
Right.
you're using it
You're using it
as information.
as information. Yeah.
Okay. Now what about countertransference?
Well, countertransference is the flip side.
Okay.
It's where the counselor unconsciously transfers
Okay.
feelings,
Mhm.
thoughts, or behaviors
Right.
onto the client.
So it's the same thing.
It is, yeah.
But from the counselor's perspective.
Yeah.
From the counselor's perspective, exactly.
Ah.
Okay, you know, imagine a counselor
Okay.
who's working with a client
Yeah.
who reminds them of their own child.
Okay.
They might unconsciously start treating that client as if they are their child.
Okay.
Overstepping boundaries or becoming overly invested.
Wow. So that's a big no-no.
It is, yeah.
So how do counselors avoid doing that?
Well, again, self-awareness is crucial.
Okay.
Counselors need to be aware of their own emotional triggers, unresolved issues, and personal biases.
Okay, and if they realize they're doing it,
yes,
what do?
They seek supervision.
Okay.
Talking through their feelings and reactions with a supervisor can help them gain objectivity and develop those strategies for managing those countertransference reactions.
So they're getting help.
They are, yes.
From somebody else.
Support is essential.
Okay, cool. Now let's shift gears and talk about what makes a skilled counselor.
Okay.
What are the qualities that make somebody good at this job?
Well, it's a combination of factors.
Okay.
Knowledge, skills, and personal qualities.
Okay.
It's like a master chef who has a deep understanding of ingredients, techniques, and flavors.
Okay.
But they also possess that creativity and passion and a commitment to excellence.
So you're saying it's not just about what, it's about who you are.
It's about who you are as a person, yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the key ingredients for a skilled counselor?
Well, first and foremost, a broad range of skills is essential.
Okay.
Counselors work with a variety of clients facing a wide range of challenges.
Right.
So they need to be adaptable, versatile, and able to draw upon a variety of approaches.
Okay.
It's like having a toolbox filled with different tools for different jobs.
Okay, so what else is in that toolbox?
Well, a strong foundation in evidence-based practice is crucial.
Evidence-based practice, what does that even mean?
It means using approaches and techniques that have been scientifically proven to be effective.
So it's not just about your gut feeling.
No.
It's
about using research and data to inform your practice.
So you're following the science.
We are. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What else?
Well, deep self-awareness is essential. Counselors need to be aware of their own strengths and weaknesses, their biases, and potential blind spots.
Okay, so they have to be very introspective.
I do.
Yeah, okay, what else?
Well, the ability to stay detached while remaining empathetic.
That sounds hard.
It is. It's a delicate balance.
So you have to be able to hold space.
You do.
For the client's pain.
Yeah. Host speaker.
And we're back. Ready to wrap up our counseling deep dive.
Absolutely. I'm excited to see where we land.
Now, we've talked about the different phases of counseling, some of those potential pitfalls, but I feel like there's one big piece missing.
Yeah, you're right. We haven't talked about ethics yet.
Right? So why are ethics so important in counseling?
Well, think of it like this. Ethics are the backbone of responsible counseling.
True.
They guide our decisions, help us prioritize the client's well-being, and ensure we're upholding professional standards.
So it's more than just having good intentions.
It is, yeah.
It's about having a clear framework.
It is. It's like having a roadmap, a compass, to navigate the complexities of therapy.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So let's break down some of those core ethical principles.
Sure.
One that comes up a lot is confidentiality.
Right. Confidentiality is essential.
Why is that so important?
Imagine a vault where you can store your most precious possessions, knowing they'll be safe and protected.
Okay.
That's what confidentiality offers clients. Okay.
A safe space to share their deepest thoughts and feelings.
So they know that what they say in therapy stays in therapy.
Exactly. It fosters trust and allows them to be vulnerable.
Now, are there ever any exceptions to that rule?
There are a few limited exceptions, primarily when there's a risk of harm to the client or others.
Okay.
Or when required by law. But these are very specific and rare situations.
Okay.
And counselors always discuss those limits up front.
Okay, so what about informed consent?
Well, informed consent is all about transparency and empowering the client.
Okay.
It's like a contract between the client and the counselor.
Okay.
Where the client understands the nature and purpose of therapy.
Okay.
The risks and benefits and their rights.
So they're making an informed choice to participate.
Exactly. They know what they're getting into and what to expect.
Now let's talk about boundaries.
Okay.
Why are boundaries important in the counseling relationship?
Well, boundaries protect both the client and the counselor.
Okay.
They define the limits and parameters of the relationship. So what do those boundaries look like?
Well, they can include things like maintaining a professional physical space, avoiding dual relationships, setting clear limits on communication outside of sessions.
Okay, so you're keeping it professional.
Professional.
And focused on the therapy.
It's about creating a clear distinction between the therapeutic relationship and other types of relationships.
All right, so what about competence? What does it mean for a counselor to be competent?
Competence means having the necessary skills and knowledge to effectively address the client's needs.
So it's more than just having a degree.
It is. It's about continually learning and staying up to date with the latest research and best practices.
So how does a counselor know if they're competent to treat a certain issue?
Well, part of competence is knowing your limits.
Okay.
It's being able to recognize when you need to consult with a colleague or refer a client to another professional.
Okay, so it's okay to say, I don't know everything.
Exactly. Sometimes the most ethical decision is to refer a client to someone with more specialized expertise.
Now, earlier we touched on dual relationships.
Right.
What are those, and why are they a concern in counseling?
A dual relationship is when there's another relationship besides the therapeutic one between the client and the counselor.
Okay, so like if they're friends outside of therapy.
Exactly. Or if there's a family connection or business partnership.
So how do those create problems?
They can compromise objectivity and potentially lead to exploitation.
Okay, so it's about maintaining that professional distance.
Yes, it's about prioritizing the client's well-being above all else.
Now, I'm sure there are times when ethical dilemmas come up.
Absolutely, they do.
Those gray areas where there's not a clear answer.
It's like navigating a maze.
Okay.
You have to carefully consider each path and the potential consequences.
So how do counselors make ethical decisions in those tough situations?
Well, it's a process.
Okay.
You have to identify the problem, gather information, consider different courses of action, and consult with colleagues.
So you're not just winging it?
Definitely not. Ethics require careful deliberation and a commitment to doing what's right.
So essentially, you're using those ethical principles as your guide.
Exactly. They provide a framework for navigating those difficult situations.
It sounds like ethical decision-making is a complex and ongoing process.
It is, yeah. It's something that counselors grapple with throughout their careers.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of counseling.
It has, yeah.
From understanding those core skills to recognizing those potential pitfalls and navigating those ethical dilemmas.
Absolutely. It's a challenging but ultimately rewarding profession.
I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
I think so, too. Hopefully it sparks some further exploration.
So thank you for joining us on this journey into counseling.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it informative and insightful, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.